just begin the questioning and then yield to my distinguished colleagues. Dr. Jasser, you talked about this tendency to give Muslims a pass. There are a number of Muslim leaders, as you and I know so well, Ray Suric from the former Grand Mufti of Bosnia, who has spoken out repeatedly, as have others. But I find, and you may find this as well, they get almost no traction in the popular media and absolutely no coverage in the Middle East. You pointed out the role that how did you put it? Anti-Semitism was long a tool utilized by Islamists in order to invoke common sympathy from secular nationalists who also developed a hatred of Jews in order to avoid national introspection. To what extent is that understood in the Muslim world? And if you could speak to the role, and others might want to speak to it as well, that hate TV plays. We had Natan Sharansky testify at one of my hearings years ago, and he brought a clip of a soap opera, so-called, that ran throughout the Middle East that showed a blood libel, a little boy, Christopher, having his throat slit to be put into the matzah, an absolute libel against Jews. And he said, people believe this. And I'm wondering, how can such a lie be embraced by so many people? Where's the corresponding pushback? But if you could speak to that.
Thank you, Chairman Smith. I can't tell you how important all of these questions are. I'll start with the last one, which is, hate TV and the media. It is no mistake that these ideas are getting traction. It's because of the billions of dollars put behind it. Al Jazeera has a huge following. Egyptian TV, Iranian press TV, all of these propaganda arms are bolstered with billions of dollars and simply spread a lot of these ideas. And eventually, even though the people may distrust and hate their governments and dictatorships, it's going to gain traction in their mindset because that was all they see. And that's why the Arab awakening has been a good thing in order to begin to have diversity in the media and in the mindsets. And the other thing is that we've been missing in action. As far as promoting ideas and engaging in their media. When we put money into Iraq and the media there that we had, Hurra TV, it doesn't get any ratings. They're not going to watch American TV. What we need to do is give platforms to Muslim organizations, Muslim reformers, as you mentioned, from Bosnia, and we have a coalition of reformers called the American Islamic Leadership Coalition that includes Canadians and American reformers that right now is almost 30 different members of organizations that have been working to expose anti-Semitism, includes people like Tariq Fatah, that has recently written a book on Islam and Islamist anti-Semitism. So I think it's important. These platforms do not come easily. They've had a huge head start because of the funding, and that funding has had a core ideology. The secularists of these dictatorships have, in many ways, co-opted this anti-Semitism as a bridge to build these coalitions. The people really have been taken by it because there's no infrastructure of education, economic well-being, free markets in order to counter this. And until the secularists, who are a majority, I believe, find some unifying idea, they're going to continue to be fractionated, and the Islamists, who are only a plurality, are going to continue to win elections as they have in Egypt and Tunisia until the secularists can come together in a unifying idea such as liberty. In the meantime, they've only been unified by generations of hate. Mubarak, who was supposedly our ally, showed the protocols. Assad in Syria and his father instilled hate. They instill hate in their population, even though they're secular, against faith communities, because it works to monopolize the masses and control their mindset via anti-Semitism as the tool to do that. And I can't tell you enough how much it's important for us to develop public-private partnerships of reform-based organizations. And I think anti-Semitism, work against it, will be a tool to begin to get into taking sides within the House of Islam. As long as we don't take sides, the Islamists are going to win because they're the strong horse.
Let me ask you, Dr. Lantos Sweat, you, in your testimony, quoted Egyptian President Morsi as urging the teaching of hatred of Jews in the country, to the country's children. Why is it that so many governments, and I would include our own, mistakenly look at the Muslim Brotherhood as somehow being moderate when it has such a profoundly anti-Semitic foundation to it?
Well, I think this relates to an ongoing challenge that those of us who advocate passionately on behalf of human rights face, and that is the ever-present specter of realpolitik. I think that we have historically viewed the Muslim Brotherhood as a very dangerous organization with values and principles and platforms utterly inimical to our American values and democracy. But as my colleague Zuhdi Jasser just said, because the Muslim Brotherhood, specifically in Egypt, was the strong horse after the fall of Mubarak, we found ourselves walking down that road of finding reasons to excuse and explain away very, very disturbing elements of their platform. And I think that's the situation that we find ourselves in. I think it's also, sadly, a reality that Morsi is probably now, relatively speaking, a moderate as against some of the really extreme Salafis who are part of his coalition and are playing a very, very significant role in Egypt today. So I think we are drawn down that road, and history shows again and again and again that human rights, when they are marginalized, when they're put in a neat, tidy little box in the corner, is something that we simply address rhetorically every now and then conveniently kind of stash them in that diplomatic corner labeled irrelevant and unimportant. It comes back to bite us in a very hard way when it comes to the rubber meets the road reality of American politics. My colleague Eleni Massimino down at the end of the table spoke about the need for the United States to develop a national security policy based around the priority and importance of religious freedom. Anybody with eyes to see can understand that many of the gravest threats facing our nation today from a national security and a anti-terrorism perspective are coming from societies where religious freedom is constrained, where you don't have robust protections that lead to tolerance, democracy, pluralism, all the virtues that we are here advancing. So it is, it is a very dangerous and short-sighted game to ignore the long-term strength that comes to a society when we base our policies on standing firmly and strongly for our most profound values, because those profound values of pluralism, tolerance, democracy, equality, freedom have built the strong nation that we enjoy today. And it's by pursuing and strengthening those policies abroad that we can build strong allies and strong partners.
The chair's time has expired. Mrs. Cicilline.